Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. In the last couple years, I have completely fallen in love with DTF printing. I think it is one of the best new methods for crafters out there to create vibrant prints on all sorts of soft surfaces. Unlike other methods like sublimation, DTF transfers can go on cotton fabrics, they can go on other types of fabrics, they can also go on black and other dark fabrics. So it makes them very versatile, and you can do a lot more with them than you can with some of these other methods. DTF is billed as a sort of hassle-free transfer, right? You get it, you press it, and you're good to go. I mean, it's really easy. And for the most part, it is. It's so easy to do. But what if you are having problems? That is what today's video is going to address. Hopefully, if you are having problems with your DTF transfers, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks in this video to make sure that your projects turn out better. To start, let's talk about why your DTF transfer might not be sticking to your blank when you're pressing your project. In basically any heat press craft, we're going to be talking about time, temperature, and pressure, right? These are the three variables when it comes to using a heat press, and they come into play when using a DTF transfer as well. So to start, you might not be using the right temperature. Most DTF transfers want you at about 310 to 330 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you are below that or above that, you may have an issue. And then there might be some transfers that actually fall outside of that range, so specialty transfers, and you want to make sure that you're always following the manufacturer's instructions. That way, when you are pressing your transfer, you are not overcooking it or undercooking it. Time can also get you here. You don't want to press it too little and not have time for that adhesive to activate and actually stick to your blank, and you don't want to overpress it and overcook that adhesive. So again, start with the manufacturer's recommendations. Generally, I would say 12 to 15 seconds is fairly standard. However, on some surfaces, I have to press for 20 seconds, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Third, you might be using the wrong pressure, and I think this is one that a lot of people might get in trouble with if they don't have a sort of standard heat press. If you are trying to press a DTF transfer using a handheld press, so something like a Cricut Easy Press, you may have difficulty with your transfer sticking, and that is because it is hard to get that much pressure just using your arms. It's possible, but honestly, I don't feel like those transfers hold up quite as well to something that has been pressed in a heat press. If you do have a standard heat press, make sure that pressure is set to pretty high. You want like a good amount of resistance when closing this thing. You don't want to just be able to shut it, because the DTF transfer really needs that pressure to be able to adhere to your blank. So that's time, temperature, and pressure, and those are three things that you're always going to want to think about. But here are a few other things that might be getting in the way of a good DTF transfer. The first, like I mentioned before a little bit, is that you may have the wrong heat source. So if you are trying to get your Easy Press to work and you just can't do it, you might need a full-size heat press where you can adjust the pressure. And if you're using a household iron, don't. It's just not going to work very well, and you're not going to get that even transfer. I also recommend doing a second and possibly a third press. So after I initially press my DTF transfer and I peel back that transfer sheet, I then add a piece of parchment paper and I press it again for the same amount of time. I then also flip it over and press it from the back. When I'm doing that, I actually put the transfer directly on the bottom pad of my heat press. This actually presses this sort of rubbery mat into the DTF transfer, and that really presses it into the fabric, and I find that I get a really solid transfer if I do that. Another issue you might be having is moisture. So especially if you live in a humid place, you want to make sure you are always pre-pressing your garment. Yes, this takes an extra step. Yes, some DTF companies say you don't need to do it, but if there is moisture in your garment or in whatever you're making, that can affect the way that the adhesive adheres to that particular garment. No matter what, I always do a pre-press. If I can see steam coming out of it after I press it, I will continue to press it, because it is more important to me to take that little bit of extra time to make sure that my blank is really dry before adding that transfer, rather than it coming off in the wash or have some other issue. Another problem you might be having with your DTF transfers is trying to use sort of a difficult base material. I've made a lot of DTF transfer shirts, and honestly, I can make those with almost no problems. However, when I'm making tote bags for my small business, which I make pretty much daily now, I have found that this canvas is just a little bit more difficult to work with. For example, like I said earlier, I have to press these for 20 seconds instead of the usual 12 to 15. They are just a little bit more, I don't know, bumpy, I guess, and so they just take a little bit more effort and care when I'm making these projects. So if you're not getting good adhesion, those are a few of the places that you can start with, right? You can start with your time, your temperature, your pressure. You can make sure you have a good heat press. You can understand that some materials might be more difficult than others. Let me give you a few more tips on good adhesion. The first is is to use a high quality transfer. There are so many companies selling DTF transfers out there, but I actually prefer Ninja transfers. I have been using them for more than a year now with my small business, and I really have had such good luck with all of their transfers. I have used transfers from other places. I've not been nearly as happy with them. So definitely make sure you're using a high quality transfer. A low quality transfer may not have enough adhesive on the back to stick to your project. It may have too much adhesive on the back and it may get kind of goopy. So going with a well-known company like Ninja Transfers ensures that you really should have a good experience with any transfer that you order from them. Another way to get good adhesion is to use a pressing pad. So we know from most heat transfer projects that the seams of whatever you're pressing can be problematic. And that's true with DTF transfers. If you have these thick, bulky seams like I have here with this particular tote bag, if I put a pressing pad inside of the tote bag, it basically lifts that surface that I'm pressing on away from the seams so I can get that like better pressing surface, and I find that it does much better. A third thing you can try is sort of rubbing your transfer after that first press. So once you open up the lid, just, I have a drawer in mind, so I pull it out and then I grab a washcloth or something else to protect my hands, and I sort of just rub my transfer to kind of press it down into the material that I'm pressing it to. This is especially true if you have a design that has a lot of intricate parts. If you're just pressing, one big shape, I find it so much easier than pressing something like this, which has a lot of tiny parts. So this is a tote bag that I make. I make these all the time, and I find that these little star pieces tend to be the ones that don't like to stick. I get good adhesion with the words because they're kind of like a larger field, but these little stars, especially the little dots, just don't love to stick. So a lot of times I will go ahead and just grab that washcloth, kind of press them down before I peel back the carrier sheet, and I find that that helps them stick really well. And then finally, if you are really struggling because you are using some sort of very difficult material, try spot pressing. So I sometimes will break out my Cricut mini press, so really the little handheld one, and basically just spot press the areas that I know are problematic. So for me, again, with this design, it's those little stars. I will kind of just run my little iron across that. Yes, it takes more time, but again, DTF is so easy when you're pressing on something like a garment, but if you are using those more difficult base materials, sometimes you're just gonna have to take a little bit more time to get it right. So I will spot press using my little Cricut mini press, and then I will go ahead and press it, and that almost always solves the problem for me. All right, let's say we have our entire project made. So I have my tote bag here that I made, looks great, but maybe I throw it in the wash and all of a sudden my DTF transfer is fading. It's not necessarily peeling up, but the colors are fading. Ugh. What are we gonna do about that? So there are two things I want you to think about. One, again, is to use a high quality transfer. Something like Ninja Transfers, they're going to give you a high quality transfer that is designed to be washed. If you're using sort of a budget transfer or something that hasn't been tested a lot, you may find that your transfer actually fades, and that sucks. So make sure that you are using that high quality transfer to get really high quality results. And then second, watch how you're washing it. So if you are washing this on super high sanitize mode with a bunch of pairs of jeans that are rubbing all over it, and you use some harsh chemical, detergents, or maybe you throw bleach in there, obviously it's really durable, but it's not indestructible. So you don't need to wash this inside out on delicate and line dry. I have so many DTF shirts, for example, that I have washed countless times, especially for my boys, and they still look so good because I just run them through the normal laundry. But if you're finding that you're getting some fading, just take a look at your wash settings, because you definitely don't want to be washing it with a whole bunch of abrasive detergents and things like that, because it can fade your transfer over time. Then there's the third problem you might have, which is peeling up after washing. So there's really nothing worse than making yourself something, throwing it in the wash, and then pulling it out and having it basically peel off whatever you've made. It is such a disappointment. Those of us who've used HTV for years know the feeling. So let's talk about reasons that your DTF transfer might be peeling after you've washed it. To start, we can go back to that time, temperature, and pressure. If you're not using enough time, if you're not getting the heat press hot enough to actually really adhere that adhesive, then it could peel off in the wash. When transferred properly, you should get 50 plus washes out of anything DTF, often more. I mean, my kid has a turtle shirt that I made for him 2 years ago at this point. He still wears it. It barely fits. We wash that, all the time. It's probably been washed at least 100 times and it still looks really, really good. So if you are seeing this stuff just come, peeling up right away, then maybe you're not using enough pressure. Maybe you're not getting that adhesive into the fibers of your garment enough. Maybe you're not getting it hot enough to really melt that adhesive. So go back to the beginning, make sure those time, temperature, and pressure settings are correct so that you can make sure that you don't have problems when it comes out of the wash later. And then again, we have problematic fabrics. So I wouldn't say that cotton canvas is necessarily a problematic fabric. I just find it a little bit more difficult to work with. There are fabrics that don't work as well with DTF though. So if you are putting something on spandex or other stretchy things, you may find that over time that your transfer starts to lift up. And that is just the stretchy nature of fabric, right? It's just like, it's gonna stretch and that transfer doesn't stretch very much and it's just gonna start peeling up if it can't stretch. This is another place where low quality transfers can strike again. So you wanna make sure you're using a high quality transfer. Again, the amount of adhesive that goes on the back of a DTF transfer can vary wildly. When I was in Fargo, North Dakota, working with Heat Transfer Warehouse, learning how to use a DTF machine, I found that I had a very difficult time getting the right amount of adhesive on the back of my DTF transfer before I sort of baked it to cure that adhesive. Sometimes I had too much, sometimes I had too little, sometimes it wasn't even. If you're using a high quality, reputable brand, something like Ninja Transfers, they're gonna have giant machines that do this for you. It's gonna create a very even transfer. If you're ordering from somebody who is doing it at home, I mean, there are a lot of really, really great companies out there. Small businesses, definitely support them if they are putting out a good product, but a lot of times the quality assurance isn't quite there. So double check what you're doing, make sure that that adhesive is, very even across the back, because that is what's going to help keep those transfers from pulling up in the wash. And then finally, once again, harsh washing conditions can also peel up a DTF transfer. So if you are using, super hot sanitary mode, or if you're using some sort of really, really crazy detergent or something, that all can affect the adhesive on the back of the DTF transfer and cause it to peel up. Thankfully, almost all of my DTF projects have turned out really well and I have not had too many issues. The issues that I have had include it not sticking quite enough, and that's when I increased that time. I highly recommend increasing the time before you start increasing the temperature. Just give it, another 8, 10, 15 seconds to see if that helps. You can also increase the temperature by 10 degrees if you need to in increments. But again, if it's really not sticking, it could be the base and not the transfer itself. And if you are trying to put DTF on something hard, that's not really what it's meant for. So if you're trying to put DTF transfers on a mug, for example, that's not really what it's meant for. There are so many other options for that. DTF really works best on soft surfaces. So there are some other things that I've tried. I tried wood, I tried can koozies, I've tried leather, a few other things. I do have a video about that, so I will go ahead and link that down in the description. But generally, if you're using a DTF transfer, you're going to be using it on some sort of soft blank. I want to thank Ninja Transfers for sponsoring this video. It was a video I was going to make anyway, but then they asked if they wanted to partner, and I have been using their transfers without partnership for over a year. So when they asked if I wanted to partner, I said, of course, yes, I do. So a big thank you to Ninja Transfers. If you are looking for high quality transfers, I truly could not recommend them enough. I have ordered, I don't know, at this point, like probably 1/4 of a mile of transfers. I have no idea. It is so many transfers to the tote bags that I make for my small business. I've always had incredibly beautiful results with everything I've gotten from them. So if you're looking for a good DTF provider, I highly recommend Ninja Transfers. I hope you found this video on DTF troubleshooting helpful. If you have any questions or you have a problem that I did not address here, please let me know down in the comments and I'll help you troubleshoot. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate a like. Follow my channel for more DTF and crafty content. I'll see you next time.